Let's turn to you, Michael. It's a huge mobilisation of assets, this, isn't it? Just talk us through the armada and what it is made up of.
Yeah, well, it's not that massive, actually, Jonathan, in the sense that, I mean, Trump made these comments 2 weeks ago when he said, you know, help is coming, keep on the streets. A very strange thing to say, because at the time, the carrier had gone last October. He had 3 destroyers in the area and 3 literal combat ships, which are like corvettes. There was nothing there to conduct a sophisticated campaign. You could have done an emergency campaign of some sort, but nothing sophisticated. Now the Abraham Lincoln is there, carrier, but what it is, it's one carrier strike group. So it's got 3 destroyers with it. It's got, and they're air defence destroyers. It's got a submarine with it, which will have plenty of Tomahawk missiles on board, but that's it. And the carrier itself is extremely powerful, and it's got its F-18 Super Hornets on board and lots of other things. But the George H. Bush carrier left Norfolk a little while ago into the Atlantic. That looked as if it was going to the Mediterranean. That's turned back. And the Bush is back in Norfolk, Virginia this morning, as if there's been a problem with it. So he's got one carrier strike group there, which is powerful, but it's hardly a massive armada.
Oh, that's interesting. OK, so the armada not quite as massive, Dominic, as perhaps we're led to believe, but it is gunboat diplomacy, isn't it? What is Trump hoping for here? He's clearly hoping for a deal rather than starting a war with Iran.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big stick, and he's trying to use that to kind of, you know, the threat of that to persuade the Iranian leadership to do a deal. And that seems to be a shift. Now, a few weeks ago, the height of those protests that were brutally crushed by the Iranians, killing thousands of people, just gunned down in the streets. He said to the Iranian government, if you shoot people, if you kill people, then you're going to feel it from American firepower. That hasn't happened. It wasn't in the region. But now he's got the firepower there. He seems to be suggesting that it's not so much about that. It's about doing a deal with him. And that, we understand, is about the nuclear and missiles program. So dealing with the ballistic missile program that the Iranians are still operating, but also what remains of their nuclear program. And what's interesting about that Truth Social post is he kind of said, well, I've done it in Venezuela, I can do it as effectively in Iran. Iran is so different to Venezuela, not least because in Venezuela, it now turns out, the Americans have people on the inside, Delcy Rodriguez and others, who basically said to them, on the quiet, you take him out and we'll cooperate with you. There's no sign he's going to have that with the Iranians. You know, he's not going to go in and take out Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader. It's a much tougher nut to crack. And I think the biggest danger for the Americans is it could be totally counterproductive. The Iranians could end up having to rally around the government that's lost all legitimacy, that they despise, because they're being attacked. And it's hard to see how he would sort of bomb them into submission.
Yeah, well, let's ask Michael that question. I mean, what potential targets could there be?
3 possibilities, none of them very good. One is go for the nuclear sites again, for what use that would be, because, as Dom says, I mean, that would create a rally around the flag sort of effect. Secondly, go for IRGC bases of some sort, their infrastructure, or a decapitation strike, just try to take out the leadership. But again, I mean, that's not so easy. I mean, the IRGC are about 200,000 officers or people, and they've got behind them, the Basij, about 600,000 militias. So there's about 800,000 people who are armed and determined, and they don't just do it as a job. This is their life. This is their families. This is their wealth. This is what gives them meaning to their existence. And even if the Iranian revolution, the Islamic revolution, is only popular with about 10% of the population now, which is the general view, that's still 5 million people. So there's a base of support there. And, you know, bombing different sites is not likely to reduce that base of support, and it might actually have the effect of killing off the protests, because it would make it very easy then for the IRGC or the Basij just to come out on the street and hose anybody who comes out on the assumption that they must be American agents. So it's very difficult to think of targets that would help the opposition at the moment.
Really interesting, fascinating stuff. James, back to you. Just on that Venezuela point, President Trump did make that point, didn't he, in his Truth Social post? But these are 2 very different cases.
Well, they absolutely are, yeah. And as Dom pointed out, there was cooperation in Caracas. That was a surgical strike with pre-planning. They had people on the inside. I mean, it was absolute gold standard stuff in terms of the extraction and arrest of Nicolas Maduro. But it's a whole different ball game in Iran. You know, the end game, apart from anything else, what would be the end game in Iran? How do you give those people who've been protesting in the streets what they want? It takes rather more than coordinated strikes far from Tehran, I would suggest. I mean, Donald Trump holds up Venezuela for good reasons, because that reflects him and his country and his military as best in class, and it demonstrates absolute success, which is how he would want to present himself as commander-in-chief. But Venezuela, it's a done deal. We see that already. We heard Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, this morning talking about how it's all going swimmingly. They have Delcy Rodriguez in their back pocket. They have access to oil resources. So, Venezuela is done. That's parked. Iran, a whole different set of problems. What would the end game be? What would be the capacity for instability, both inside Iran and in the wider Middle East itself? That's the kind of conflict and the kind of scenario that Donald Trump doesn't want to get dragged into. These people in this auditorium, the loyal MAGA support base, they voted him in on the back of a promise not to be involved and get engaged in foreign wars. He doesn't want to be staring down the barrel of that prospect.
Yeah, well, let's finish with a final thought from Dominic. Moving on from that point, what is the Iranian calculation here? Because, as James was saying, they know Donald Trump doesn't want to be dragged into a huge conflict. What will be going through their minds this evening?
I think they'll be worried. I think Donald Trump unsettles them. He killed Qasem Soleimani, something that no one thought he would do. One of the great sort of military heroic figures of the Iranian Revolution just ordered his assassination. He might do something very unexpected here. But I think they'll be playing for time, and they will know that the narrative that they have put out there, misleadingly, very deceptively, during this unrest, which was that it was fomented by foreign agents. Yes, they killed lots of people. They've admitted that, but they've said that they had to, because these foreign agents, these Americans, these Zionists were in the crowds. They had to kill them. Well, if the great Satan, as they call America, starts bombarding Iran, that falls completely into their lap. It gives them a further excuse to kill any kind of protest and unrest. And there's no way the American firepower joins with civilian uprisings in Iran and topples the regime for that reason. When we went there shortly after the 12-day war, someone said to us, we hate the regime. We hate the fact that they tell us what our daughters have to wear on their heads, what kind of things we have to do at home. They should get out of our lives. They're old, corrupt men. Their time has gone. But Mr. Dominic, he said, there's nothing we can do. They have the guns. And they still have the guns, the government. And it's impossible to see how they are shaken from that position. The government has lost legitimacy, again, because it's killed so many people. Ultimately, it's probably like the Soviet Union. It will fall from power. This government is unsustainable in that sense. But it's going to take longer than this. And it's very hard to see how an American armada can hasten their downfall. They're very canny negotiators, the Iranians. They will get what they can out of this. And if Donald Trump does a deal with the government, then it actually could strengthen the people who have gone out and done so much damage to their own people on the streets of Iran.
Yeah,
and the Iranians will play that game. They'll look as if they're doing a deal with the Americans and string it out and string it out and string it out. And Mr. Trump may find himself again in one of these endless discussions about a deal which doesn't quite happen. That's another possibility.
Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out in coming days. Dominic, Michael and James in the United States, thank you all very much.